Hello guys, it's been about 3 years since we've bought our Batko grinder and I wanted to make a follow-up video about it. In general, it has been really great and we did some awesome projects with it. However, there were also some modifications that we had to make and there's some stuff you have to look after if you decide to buy one. So let's get right in. So the first thing is also the most obvious. It's the rust situation. It looks quite bad. We didn't opt for the optional black finish, which should protect it better from rust. And because obviously it gets wet when you cool your knives, so it starts to rust. However, it doesn't affect it, it just doesn't look that good. And if you really care about this stuff, then I would recommend going for the black finish. But otherwise, it doesn't really matter. The second point is the electrical stuff. So here you can see the variable frequency drive, which is very important for such a machine because you want to control your speed and you really need to protect it from dust. There's obviously the dust-proof controller for it, which you can see here, which I also would say is a must. This one can get nasty, it doesn't matter, it just controls this main unit. But you still want to protect your main unit from dust, especially from metal shavings. They even sent out an email to all of the customers that this is very important to protect. They now offer a sealed enclosure for it, but we made our little contraption here with a plastic box and some holes in the bottom for cooling, and it works just fine, but just make sure you protect it, otherwise it is going to fail. Now we're here on the side of the grinder and this is where we made our first modification, which is we brought this plate a bit more out so that we can get proper flat grinds. As you can see, this has tension on the belt all the way from the top to the bottom. And this is crucial, at least for knife making. For woodworking, I guess it wouldn't matter that much, but you cannot properly flatten your pieces because the belt will come in at an angle. And when you don't press on it extremely hard, it will always take off a bit more on the top and on the bottom, which is obviously a problem. But after you do this, first of all, we ground this down. Let me show you real quick. Now we're here on the front. As you can see, we radius the top and the bottom of this plate to reduce friction. And what you also need to do is you need to reduce friction on the entire plate. Because if you bring it out further, the problem you run into is the belt sticks on startup. So you always need to, give it some help. And it generates a lot more heat on this base plate and then also on the belt and on your workpiece, which isn't great. So what we used, because we had it lying around, is this, it's a PTFE based dry lubricant, which works okay, but it wears off quite quickly. So I would recommend getting some graphite sheet, which they sell on their site and you can just buy it on the internet in general, which is a lubricating graphite sheet that you can just cut up and stick on it, and that also reduces friction and helps with this, because it is a problem. It is quite annoying and I don't think it's really good for the machine if there's always a lot of resistance. So just get some of this and this will fix it, and in combination with bringing the plate out, it will give you a lot better results for your knives. So to get to the general build quality of the grinder, I would say it is very good, and it's certainly good enough for knife making. The rust doesn't bother me that much, because if you do a lot of grinding and also blacksmithing, everything's disgusting anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The threads are all cut nicely. You can see you can start them pretty good. They are tapered and they are really nicely cut, so you can even thread those things in by hand, which is nice. You don't need tools, or you need them to tighten it, but it's nice to be able to put those in by hand, and they don't get stuck like somewhere in the middle and you need to get your tool on it, refill, and then continue by hand and all that stuff. So this is all very well. We had one problem with one of those smaller grinding wheels which didn't work. The bearing wasn't centered properly, but we just sent him an email and then we got a replacement, so that's not really that big of a deal. We also never had any electrical issues. We opted for the stronger engine, which isn't really necessary unless you do larger work. We made some kukris, for example, or larger axes. Then it is quite nice to have the extra power. There were no overheating problems. Just clean out your fan from time to time and then everything's okay. The electrical installation, obviously you, or I guess technically an electrician, has to do it for legal reasons, but it isn't really complicated. You just need a spare cable to connect the on and off switch. As you can see, you have to run one wire between your primary VFD and your on-off switch, and then another wire to your dust-proof controller. So it's not that big of a deal, and they provide you with instructions to do it, so it isn't really a big deal. Now let's get on to grinding belts. The most important belts are one for stock removal, 36 and 60 grit Cubitron belts. These are so great even on hardened steel, and you probably need the 60 grit the most for grinding in your bevels. The 36, in my opinion, is a bit too rough, and also because the size of the actual grinding material is so thick that you sit quite far away from your grinding pattern, which is a bit weird, but it makes it hard to get a great angle for me. So I like to use a 60 grit, 36 only for very rough stuff. And then as your general purpose belts, the blue Klingspor ones, because the standard red belts that cost like 150 or €2, I would say they are pretty much useless even on wood, because you can only make like one knife handle, and then it's also quite dull at the end. And these blue ones last a lot longer. Just make sure you need to separate your metal from your wood belts, because once you grind metal a single time, it's dull and it won't cut wood, you will just burn it. So separate those. Those last you for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 handles on very hard wood. On terms of grids, I go up to a 120, with this up from 60, so like 60, 100, 120. And then for polishing, we have these ones, which are the J-Flex ones, which are quite flexible. They're nice for radius because you can use the top side and polish your pieces. And then if you want to finish them on the actual belt grinder, I will show you what we use for that. As finishing belts, we have Trisect belts 3M, the A30 ones. These are give you a very, very nice finish. If you don't want to do a hand finish, maybe you do Damascus steel and you want to etch it, then this can be enough. And if you just want to restore some tools, then the Scotch-Brite belts are also great. It just removes a lot of the surface rust on most tools and gives you a nice matte finish, which is just enough for most of your garden tools or hammers or whatever. Now let's get to the add-ons. Which of the stuff would I actually recommend you go and buy? They sell a lot of stuff on their website now. They added quite a few things and also different types of grinders, which is nice because it lets you know that the company is probably doing well and you will be able to buy spare parts in case you need something. The standard plate obviously is important, which is it's mounted on the bottom. It sits a bit more lower than the middle. And this one is the easiest to install because you just put it in and screw it down. You don't have to do any lining. So this one is obviously useful for most of your work, for grinding bevels and that kind of stuff. Then for woodworking, And if you do larger pieces, then this one is also great because you can adjust the angle. It takes a bit more effort because you need to center, or at least you need to get a 90 degree, which takes a bit of fiddling around and measuring. But you can put this one a lot lower down and use more of your platen, which is quite nice. So this one I would also recommend. The round wheels, like the smaller set, we don't need them that much because a lot of the stuff you can do with a half round file or a round file, because the cases where the radius is exactly what you need, at least for us, it's very rare. The large round wheel is quite important. If you have to do big stock removal, you take one of these or some of the other larger ones that they now sell and put on a 36 Cubitron belt. It's chewing through steel like it's just nothing. The Cubitron, the 3M belts are actually crazy. And with those large wheels, it works quite well. Some other stuff we have is this. This bevel grinding jig, which they sell in 2 different sizes. This is very useful, and it's probably better to buy theirs because then it's actually square. This self-made one doesn't work quite as well because it's actually not square, so the bevel is different on both sides. They are a bit expensive, on I think 150 and 200 euros, but if you start getting in a bit more money, then I would recommend you go and buy this. Another add-on that we made ourselves is this base plate for an S-grind, which is spring steel, welded on the top with threads. So you can make an S-grind on knives, but this is like very knife making specific. But it lets you get a very, very small radius or a very large radius without the use of giant wheels. So if you need something like this, you can make this yourself. So that was all that I wanted to tell you guys about the Batko grinder. As I said, it worked out very good after a few modifications, and it's great for any knife maker. You can tackle much bigger projects with greater precision with one of these grinders, and the selection of grinding belts is also much better. They even come in cheaper usually than the higher quality ones for the smaller 50 euro grinders. One addition I would like to see for these grinders is a surface grinding attachment. A lot of other brands sell those, and even though they are quite expensive at around 500-600 euros, they're super cool just to get greater precision. But since they already added a lot of stuff to their shop, then maybe we'll see something like this in the future. That was it for this video. Thanks for watching. Good luck with your next projects, and bye bye.